So today is the last day of Art Basel here in Miami Beach. You might have heard about it. You might have seen posts on social media. You might have heard your friends talk about it through word of mouth. I have never heard so much hype about Art Basel until this year. This year's Art Basel. This whole week I couldn't open social media without seeing something about it, to a point where it's like kind of comical, and some of them are satirical, gimmicky posts of this random D-list celebrity is also at Art Basel this week. And I don't know why this year got more hype, but this was my first official Art Basel living here in Miami Beach, where I actively participated in many events. For months, I've had people here in Miami, friends, say, "You're gonna see Art Basel week. It's so interesting. There's art, there's interesting people, there's all these fun events." So I have had this buildup of suspense now for months. So Art Basel, for those of you who are not familiar, Art Basel is basically Art Week in Miami. It's called Basel because Basel is a town in Switzerland or city in Switzerland, and in the summer they have Art Basel there. So there's a summer one in Switzerland, the winter one is here in Miami. Because winter here, everybody wants to be here, the weather's great, blah, blah, blah. So it's Art Week, there's art exhibits, there's a bunch of social events, and everything kind of revolves around that. But what's so interesting is I can tell you, as somebody who participated in events every day this week, a lot of what's happening is not really revolving around art. And I have a friend here in Miami who described it perfectly, really. She said, Art Basel is the time for the uber rich to flock to Miami and to buy art. Like, the billionaires come and actually buy expensive art. And that's like the piece of the iceberg that you see. That's the tip of the iceberg. The rest of the hoopla, the rest of the stuff you see on social media, the cool social events, like all that is just people who want to be in the action, who have FOMO and just want to be present and want to be a part of it. And my takeaway is definitely that. Yesterday I spent all day going to art exhibits, but other than that, every other event I've been to this week, I would say either had zero art or was barely tangentially, is that a word, tangentially? Very like adjacently connected to art. I'm talking one event, for example, there were, 6 paintings that you could purchase that were hung up on walls, all very expensive. I think the cheapest one was like 20 or 30K. So again, very limited number of people are actually going to consider buying these pieces, can even afford these pieces, right? But then the rest of the event was just people drinking, socializing, networking, taking selfies. And to me, a part of it, just as an observer, was like comical. The people watching for me was the real art. Like, that was the most interesting part of it, just to observe the different crowds, very eclectic crowds and cliques. And just some of it was like funny to me, that you have all these people taking selfies with paintings. Like, it's one thing if you genuinely are an art consumer, an art lover, or work in the art world, and you're there to consume art, to share art with your friends, people on social media who are part of that community. So I took pictures of some art that I like, just to have it on my phone or to share with people who I think might like it, whatever. But to me, it was weird to see how many people would stand in front of art and take selfies. And I'm like, is this about the art, or is this about you wanting to be seen with art connected to Art Basel? So in terms of the eclecticness, it's like there are people walking around who are beautifully dressed and who are just gorgeous, like naturally you're just drawn to them. They look like pieces of art, just beautiful, refined, elegant people walking all around from all around the world. And then you have the people who are very gimmicky looking, like the goths in high school who they act like they don't care, and they're just like, don't look at me, don't talk to me, but really they're putting so much effort into their presentation because they, again, want to be seen as part of the art pieces themselves, I think. So as an observer, it was an interesting thing to be around. I will say, I have never seen so many attractive people in one place in this short, condensed period of time, like particularly at Soho House, which is interesting. I went to Soho House for a few events. If you guys are familiar with Soho House, they have them all around the world, but the one in Miami had parties all week. And I was just like, where did these people come from? Just so attractive. But I think maybe this is the kind of crowd that's attractive to me, in that it's just people who look more like they take care of themselves, and it's refined. Like, a rugged prettiness in the men, and then in the women just natural beauty. So I'm not talking like big fake lips, big fake boobs, like it, less Playboy, more like Vogue, like British Vogue, French Vogue, kind of ethereal beauty in a lot of the women walking to and fro. So of course, naturally for me, I was like, I wonder how many of these people are gay, how many are straight. Like, it's a little confusing because when you see guys who are very well groomed, you have that instinct of like, I wonder how many of these guys are like, it's like they might be too groomed to be straight here. What's interesting is then a few nights I ended up at the local gay bar Twist with some friends, and very few of the people I saw there were people I saw at the other event. So I'm like, how come none of the beautiful people want to be at Twist? Like, maybe it's too trashy. Maybe this crowd is like too sophisticated and they've come here to like go to the cool events. But I was totally heartbroken that at the gay bar, none of these like really beautiful people were there. I'm curious if any of you guys have ever been to Art Basel or even participated in this year's Art Basel. What have you heard about it? And if you've been, do you feel like it was worth the hype? I personally don't. I did it once, I committed all week, I'm exhausted, I don't want to see people for days, I want the crowds to go away and go back home. The traffic was crazy all week, everything was just like packed. But what's so fascinating to me, the most fascinating thing to me about this, again, is the people, but also this idea of FOMO and how people just want to be where they hear the action is, even if it's actually not that exciting, and how people are so quick to want to participate in things that they've heard about. And it's like, are you really having fun, or have you convinced yourself this is fun because other people are telling you it's supposed to be fun?